So I mysteriously cut out at the last part of the last video, and that's because there was a Wi-Fi outage, and so I'm just recording the rest of the next morning. So that's why kind of a continuity error. Anyway, last time we left off, we were looking at k equals 1. We calculated it. We were about to start k equals 2, then I got cut off. I decided to calculate the rest of the values off screen because I'm not going to make you go through watching me calculate all of those. But presumably, if you went up to k equals 5, then you should have gotten these 6 values right over here. So pause the video here, check your work for this example to make sure that you found all 6 values of the roots of unity correctly. And then let's go into our practice problem. Right? So sometimes you might get a question that says find all the possible expressions that are fourth roots of unity. So that's just telling you for that same expression where we had v to the n power equals 1, right? We converted it to its polar form. And then we just calculated 4 roots. So when k equals 0, 1, 2, and 3. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have k, nope, we found the polar form. So polar form is 1 parentheses cosine of 0 plus I sine of 0. Okay. And so we know that our argument is 0 and our modulus is 1. So we're going to find all of those roots for k equals 0, 1, 2, and 3. Right. I'm going to kind of hopefully fast forward during this part. But yes, let's go ahead and find those. Plus I sine of 0 plus 2 pi times 3 all over 4. And then this equals 1 times cosine of 3 pi over 2 plus I sine of 3 pi over 2 when you actually simplify that fraction. And so that's going to give you negative I. And those are the 4 roots. That's pretty cool because they're all kind of different forms of 1 or I. So that's pretty awesome. Just as an exercise, right? Typically, when we find the roots, right, it's to find that k is only from 0 to n minus 1, so that we can account for all n roots, right? But let's say that I asked you to find it when k equals n, right? So I'm asking you to find the root when k equals n. So we can actually just substitute in what we know n is in the previous example. So let's say let k equals 4. And this is going to be a pattern that we see all the time. But yeah, we're just going to plug in 4 and let's see what this ends up equaling. Okay. I sine of 2 pi. So you're going to end up getting 2 pi. And so that means that you've made one full revolution around your circle. So you should end up with the same value that you get for k equals 0, which is always going to be 1 when you're calculating a root of unity, right? So this just ends up becoming 1 as well. And so this is a pattern that we see for any nth root of unity. So you're always going to find that the nth root of unity for any value of n, right? So this can be the 4th root, this can be the 6th root, this can be the 200th root, it doesn't matter. If you find the 200th root or the nth root for any value of n, it's always going to be 1. Just because of how this formula is set up, right? This shows that once you get to the nth root, you end up doing a full revolution around your circle, okay? Because these values will cancel out. So you returned to a coterminal point of k equals 0. There you go. So that's the reason why any nth root of unity for any value of n is always going to be 1. And then we have our last part here. You're not going to be tested on this, but it's honestly pretty cool to know. So sometimes when you talk to random people about the math course you're taking, they'll reference some acronym or equation they use so often that that's what they associate the entire field of study with. So like, for example, in geometry, this might be like the Pythagorean theorem or SOHCAHTOA, even though that's like not all of geometry. That's what most people end up remembering because it's always drilled into them. Same thing with like Algebra 1 and the quadratic formula, right? For trig, it's probably going to be like those nifty trig identities that always came in handy. But in any college level math course, you're probably going to come across a really passionate math teacher who mentioned something called Euler's formula. And they're probably going to talk about it so much it might just become like the main takeaway that you have from any math course you take in college. It's not the whole thing, but it is like a really beautiful formula, and we'll see in just a minute. So we define Euler's formula as the following. So if you have a complex number z equals a plus ib, then one can define that the function of z is equal to this number e, right? It approximates around like 2.718 or something like that. So e to the zth power, so you're taking e to this complex number, and then it ends up simplifying to e to the a power times cosine b plus I sine b. Okay, well, let's actually evaluate this function when z equals pi I, right? So we have this complex number, z equals pi I. We only have an imaginary part, so we can assume that our real part is 0. And then our imaginary part is going to be pi. So let's actually evaluate Euler's formula at pi I. So f of pi I, okay, then this is going to look like e to the pi I, okay? And so that becomes e to the 0th power because our a part is 0 times cosine b plus I sine of b, which we said was pi. Okay, well, e to the 0th power, nifty thing about that is that it turns into 1. And we have cosine of pi, which is -1. And then this becomes plus 0. Right? So that still equals e to the pi I. Right? Well, multiplying all those together, right, I have e to the pi I equals -1. Right? And then if I move over this -1, right, I end up getting e to the pi I plus 1 equals 0. And this is what most mathematicians, actually, I think this is like universally agreed upon, that this is the most beautiful formula or most beautiful equation in the whole world. Just because there are a couple of numbers that like are always going to be important in math, namely e, pi, I, -1, +1, and 0. And that's all included in this equation, which is why people say that this is like the most beautiful equation in the world. The actual proof of this is like something that you cover once you decide that you're going to become a math major in college. So we're not going to go over the proof of why this is actually true. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a pretty nice way of actually rounding out this course. So that's the end of this video. That's the end of pre-calc and trig. So once you're done with this video, just make sure to take your quiz on Apex, and then we'll meet again on Friday to go over our unit tests together. Enjoy.